Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Book Troop and the Literally Dead Book Club live show. If you don't know, it's happening on both of our channels at the same time. It's like magic.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I didn't know that was happening.
Oh my God, I love you. Bree's just here for a good time. I'm gonna throw it over to Gabby to start like introductions, just because it's both of us. But I started saying hello, so now Gabby can introduce herself.
Yes. Also, let us know in the chat if you can see us, because on YouTube right now it's
Gabby,
not.
you're not live yet.
Oh no!
I know.
It said there's a check mark next to both of our faces.
It says on StreamYard you're live. Let me see actually, because it wasn't showing live on Kayla for me. Okay, there we go. So it's showing live on Kayla's. Let me just double check. Yeah, if you can just comment that you can see us, that would be cool. Yeah, for some reason on mine it says waiting still. Just
what
weird.
are we waiting for?
Yeah. But it says we are live on StreamYard here.
Oh, I see you. I see you. If I click the video from my subscription box, I see your channel live.
Okay, there we go. I think it just went. Okay, perfect. Sorry about that. Technical difficulties. Okay, perfect. Okay, glad you can see us. Yeah, thank you for joining us today. Yeah, as Kayla said, we're doing a combined live show here again. We've done this a few times before, but for some reason it's still a little bit confusing. But yeah, my name is Gabby. My channel is Gabby Reads, and my book club's called the Book Troop, and we also read like thriller, mystery, horror things, and it's a good time. So, yeah.
Can you tell us your most recent? I always like to start mine out knowing somebody's recent like favorite mystery or horror. Like what's been a real win for you lately?
That's right. I brought this thriller that I just read recently was Look in the Mirror by Catherine Steadman. Yeah, and I actually really liked it. Because I liked The Family Game by this author, so I was kind of excited for this one. And this one, it had like the nanny gone wrong kind of thriller trope, but I feel like it did an interesting take on it. It was kind of different from anything else that I've read before with that trope. So I really liked this one, and I think it was pretty fast paced and is a good time. So I'd recommend it.
I'm gonna try to. I hope it's in like the Goodreads Choice Awards, and then I can read it.
Yeah, it could be.
Because I feel like my year is filling up with books that I want to read, and I don't have room for that. But I really want to read it.
Yeah, I think you'd like it.
I think so too. Okay, I'm Kayla. If you're on Gabby's channel, maybe you've never seen me before. My channel is Books and Lella, and my most recent favorite 5 stars are right here. Horror movie by Paul Tremblay, which I know isn't for everybody, but it was very much for me. And every time I go on vacation, someone dies, which is a mystery that I really like. So those are mine.
Nice.
Erin.
Hi friends, my name is Erin. My channel is Booked and Busy. While I don't have any new horror favorites, because apparently I'm very hard to please when it comes to horror, I do have 2 horror books that I read recently that pulled very strong emotions for me, primarily disgust. So if that's something that interests you, here you go. Most recently, Bloom by Delilah S. Dawson. I've never thought that someone deserved what they got so much. I read this book. Nice. Right. Also, I had a physical reaction to this book. Like my head started swimming. I had to sit down and put my head between my knees and start breathing and like drink some water when I was reading Natural Beauty.
Nice.
Yes.
So if you like strong emotions with your reading, try these.
Yes.
Thank you for sharing that take on it. Okay, we've had a couple of DNFs.
I would DNF it too, honestly. But I don't want to get it. I did.
Okay. Let's let Bree get into her introduction, and then she's actually going to share the synopsis with us because that's what everybody wants.
It's really as best as I can. If I say something wrong, come for your mama, don't come for me. Okay? That's all I'm going to say. So, into the synopsis.
Oh, tell us your channel first.
My name is Bree. Sorry, I suck with this. Lala, you know? Kayla? Anyway, my name is Bree. My channel is Black Booktician. I read books.
Any recent favorites?
Any recent favorites? I'm going to tell you right here, right now. This is the first book I've read in a month and a half. So when you say recent...
I think like based on when the people have seen you last here in this space.
Oh, okay. So I did a video on my channel, and it was a Black mystery and thriller middle grade books. All of those books were 5 stars for me. Root Magic was wonderful. The Vanquishers was wonderful. I'm trying to remember the rest of them, but those are the 2 that I'm thinking of. And I'm reading Earth Divers, which is by Stephen Graham Jones. It's his comic. He's in the 3rd volume now, and I'm obsessed with that comic series. It's really good. It's pretty much just what happens when we go back in time and fuck over Christopher Columbus and everything he tried to do to indigenous people in America. Love it.
Very cool.
It is great. It was 5 stars. 5 stars for me.
All right. Thank you for the rec.
All right. I took that dust jacket off. I would like to first say Stephen Graham Jones, one of my favorite authors. If you follow my channel, you know that's not something new. And I hate what is it called? The covering. What's that called?
The dust jacket.
The dust jacket. I hate it. I cannot.
This one specifically?
I hate all of them for his all of them. For his
Oh.
book. It's not giving what it should have gave. So I think it's garbage. So I just have the book here. This is a book that's pretty much it follows the story of Tully Driver, right? That's his name.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I had to double check. Sorry. This book follows the story of Tully Driver, who is pretty much it's kind of like what goes wrong when you have a peanut allergy and people fuck with you at school because you have this peanut allergy. It's a story about, I think the title, it says I was a teenage slasher. I think it should have been the making of a teenage slasher because that's what it gave more than I was a teenage slasher. It also, as a therapist, not to put that in there, I love the just the different layers of a person. It's like, yes, I'm killing these people. I know it's wrong, but I'm still doing it because I'm a slasher and the formula is this. So I need to go ahead and do this. But also, let me put a dash of humor in there and let you know that I really hate math class. And that's really why I'm bruised up, but not really. This is also a story of love in a way and affection. He has a friend named Amber who kind of helps guide him into this. And when I say into this, being a slasher, this is also set in the South in Texas. So I think if I say anything else, I would be spoiling it. But one keynote to know is that Stephen Graham Jones has a trilogy of I'm gonna put the name in the chat when it comes to my mind. There we go. What'd you say?
I think it's the Angel Lake trilogy.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Right. The Angel of Indian Lake.
There we go. Somebody had it. I didn't. And I feel like that whole trilogy makes this book look like I hate what I'm about to say. Oh, I hate what I'm about to say.
So you're recommending the trilogy over this one?
Hands down. This book, I won't say it didn't need to stay in the draft. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is I love Stephen Graham Jones, and this was my least favorite book I've read from him. This is what I'm saying.
Okay.
So yeah, that's the synopsis.
If we want to quickly go through our previous ratings of Stephen Graham Jones, like what we've read before, I will run through mine. My favorite is My Heart is a Chainsaw, and then Night of the Mannequins. But I also gave 4 stars to The Last Final Girl and The Only Good Indians. We actually read both of these for the book club in the past. So this is the 3rd time here with Stephen Graham Jones. And I'll start off my thoughts by saying Stephen Graham Jones is my favorite author. So
period.
More to come. It's my favorite author. Absolutely. Yeah.
Officially.
That's what I'm talking about, Kayla. Say it with your chest. Say it with your chest. Yes.
Now, what about you guys? I know, Gabby, you had similar favorites to me, right? Not with My Heart is a Chainsaw, but with Night of the Mannequins.
Yeah, I know. I think this is my 5th book from Stephen Graham Jones. First one ever for the book club though, which is pretty cool. But yeah, Night of the Mannequins is definitely my favorite from him. And then I also loved Mapping the Interior. I think I gave that one like 4.5 stars. Yeah, I loved that one. But then I've also read The Only Good Indians, which I thought was okay. I gave that one like 3 stars, I think. And then My Heart is a Chainsaw was a DNF for me, unfortunately. I wasn't the biggest fan of it. But this is my 5th book from him, and I do tend to pick up his books pretty frequently, yeah.
This is my 2nd attempt at a Stephen Graham Jones. I DNF'd My Heart is a Chainsaw like 2 pages in. And honestly, this should have been DNF. So the other Stephen Graham Jones on my TBR has gone to the unhaul pile because he's definitely not for me.
Mm-hmm.
So much slander.
Oh, yeah. Get ready.
Oh,
I'm not.
Bree, you've read what from him?
The question is what I haven't read. I've read a lot. Damn, I wish I had a list of them or something. But my favorite, my first book that I read by him was The Only Good Indians. It scared the living shit out of me. Like I was terrified. I was and it also didn't help that I was also around like indigenous people who would talk about things that he talked about in that book. So then it like made it more intense for me. But The Only Good Indians for sure. My Heart is a Chainsaw is also a fave. Night of the Mannequins, Mapping the Interior, Earth Divers. I think Earth Divers is my favorite of him, actually. I had to change that. Then The Only Good Indians, but Earth Divers. It's 3 volumes, y'all. It's real good if you want to try it.
Okay, I'm getting the vibe already of everybody's ratings here. I was gonna start it off with, I always love to hear everybody's rating and reasoning. And Gabby, you start that way too lately, haven't you? Where it's like you share just like a little bit, just like a little tease into what you thought about it before we get into spoilers.
Yeah.
I was gonna start it off by saying I have a feeling that like at least 2 out of the 4 of us absolutely hated this because like that's just kind of how Stephen Graham Jones goes a lot of the time. But now I feel like I'm the only person here who liked it. So I'm gonna leave my part for last. Gabby, if you want to kick us off then with your rating.
Sure.
You already blocked this, right?
I did, yeah. So I don't think it's the biggest mystery how I felt about this, but I think for me it was 2 stars. I wasn't the biggest fan. I thought like Aaron said, this would have been a DNF for me if I'm being honest, if it wasn't for the book clubs. And I thought, I mean, the reason why I gave it this rating is because I thought it was kind of confusing, difficult to follow at times what was happening. I didn't care for the repetition. I thought it was so repetitive in some ways. But then the reason why it wasn't 1 star is because I actually really liked the ending of this book. Like I really, really, really liked how it ended. So I had to give it the 2 stars at the end. But yeah, wasn't the biggest fan of this one.
I'm not really writing books that aren't 5 stars, but if I were to write it, I would say this was a very generous 2-star, and I mean very, very generous. My reasoning is I think this could have been a novella. This could have easily been 200 pages, and you would have told the exact same story.
Agreed.
Second, I remember because I made a Goodreads update at 36%. I said I wish we would stop yapping and start slashing. There's a lot of talking and just needless rambling, and that's kind of also part of why I DNF My Heart is a Chainsaw. It's very stream of consciousness, which I don't like. Get to the point. And I didn't like the reflective telling of the story because before any of the slashing had actually started happening, it was just like, oh, what I did 17 years ago, or when I killed those people, or the massacre. And I'm like, why are you constantly telling me about the massacre before the massacre has happened? I didn't like that. The one thing that I did enjoy was it made me ask myself, if this was happening to my bestie, would I enable her to be a serial killer? And
that part, Amber was about it.
That was interesting.
Yeah.
The audiobook narrator, 10 out of 10. He put his foot into that narration.
Bree, what's your rating?
I feel like I do this every time you invite me, and I say I don't know. But it's literally I don't know. The most difficult part about reading this book is I couldn't get out of the comparison to the trilogy. And the thing is, when I read My Heart is a Chainsaw, I was like, I need more slashing stuff from him. And then I got this one, and it felt a little underwhelming. But it didn't, like, I kept reading it. But it just wasn't my top book out of all of the books I've read from him. The repetitiveness of it that y'all talk about, and the like stream of conscious and all of those things felt very like, it felt comforting to me because I know that it's culturally appropriate. So I truly liked, that was like my favorite parts of it. And I feel bad that y'all were like, that's not my thing. But what I will say to Aaron is I agree that it should have been a novella. I do think that a shorter one could have been done. I really just felt like the making of a teenage slasher would have really made this a better reading experience for a lot of people. But yeah.
I'm pleasantly surprised with how many 5 stars were in the chat because I never like to pick a book that like so many people dislike. Obviously, I'm the only one here who is absolutely obsessed with this. This is like a 5-star favorite. I
had a feeling it would be.
I love everything about this. And I'm glad that there are quite a few people who agree. So yeah, I'm bummed that it didn't work for people, but my one sentence is I just think it was like the perfect tongue-in-cheek, self-aware take on the slasher genre. It was like really ridiculous.
Oh,
and
yeah.
the logic was ridiculous, but it was completely explained within itself. And my experience reading this was an absolute 5. I almost cried at the end. I thought it was perfect.
I want to make one like extra point. I do think that if you are someone who's really familiar with like horror movies and like horror movie tropes, this is more likely to work for you because I think it does have that tongue-in-cheek element where it's like, I know this because I had to text stuff. I was like, wasn't Justin dead or did I skip something? Like, am I making this up? Because I thought, what's happening? The supernatural, I guess, element of it all. So I was like, if you, and she was like, I think it's Jason. I was like, if you know those movies, then you're like, this is from that. And this is, and so I think it will work better for you if that also is the case.
Yeah, that was my criticism of the trilogy. I was like, don't come in here and not be familiar with slashers because you will hate this. Like, if you don't have any background knowledge in that, you will hate this.
That was one of my original thoughts, was that like that's one of the biggest things that people complain about with My Heart is a Chainsaw, is that getting into it is so difficult unless you have such background information. And I was going to say with this one, it's so much more easily recommendable because you don't have to be as steeped in horror culture. But I guess maybe I'm wrong.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's get into like our full thoughts so we can really talk about everything. My first question is just like, what were your first impressions? Because I want to know, in the first 30%, we get to know Tully. We get this narration style from him 17 years later, reflecting on himself as a teenage killer. There's a boy who dies, and then he comes back and starts killing at this party. So I want to know what your impressions were, what you thought was going on, and like what was to come. That's my first question.
My first impression was, okay, where are we going to go with this peanut allergy? That was like, I don't know why I hyper fixated on that, but that was just something that I was just like, where are we going with the
I wasn't even thinking about it.
Maybe because I have a lot of allergies. I was just like, where are we going with this? Yeah, I don't want to overtalk.
I don't know. I guess at the beginning of this, I was just kind of like waiting for the plot to pick up or waiting for something to get interesting and pull me in. So I wasn't really thinking about where the story was going because I was just trying to get a grasp on like what was going on and what I was like reading and trying to get into it, I guess.
I'm a very no thoughts, head empty reader. I'm just going along for the ride. Whatever you tell me, that's the truth. And I'm not theorizing. I'm not trying to predict. I just don't read that way. So I was just like, where are we going with this? Like, oh, he's a pitiful teenage boy. Oh, great. Continue to be pitiful throughout the whole book. And so I just like, when are we gonna get to the slashing? Because when the title is "I was a teenage slasher," I feel like it's gonna be slashing throughout.
That's why I felt like this should have been the making of a teenage slasher.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Party was a 10 out of 10. Kind of loved the beginning and Justin coming back. Didn't have a lot of thoughts. Lost at the beginning. I was thinking like the first impressions for me were like, this is so different for Stephen Graham Jones for me, because sometimes, like with My Heart is a Chainsaw, there's like this big destructive moment at the very beginning, and then it completely drops off, and it's like nothing happens for so long. So I was thinking this is going to appeal to so many people because there's so much killing right off the bat, like this party and everybody, like the ghost of this guy coming back, and like suddenly people are just dying left and right, and then it doesn't suddenly drop off and nothing happens. It's like a slow, consistent killing throughout. I tabbed all of the murders that were happening because I was keeping a body count, and it's like really consistent throughout the entire thing. And I thought that was nice. My first impressions were like, is he telling the truth? Because I think I was confused at the beginning if he was like he was making this up, if Justin coming to the party and killing everyone was actually him, because he was saying like, oh, I killed 6 people that day, and then like 6 people started dying, and I was like, so is he like, is that like a made up thing that this ghost like or zombie from the grave, it didn't actually happen? So that's where I was at in the beginning. I was wondering where it was going. And then I was also wondering if it was one of those stories where it's like, I've killed all these people. I thought maybe it was one of those books where he was saying, I feel responsible for killing all of these people, and he didn't actually kill anybody by the end, which I would have definitely been disappointed by.
Yeah.
That was my first impression. But did you enjoy the writing style and Tully's POV?
I always enjoy Stephen Graham Jones' writing style. It's comforting to me. Tully's POV, to me, the biggest thing I liked about it was it kind of forced the reader to be very compassionate to a very murderous person. And I really like that, because I firmly believe that no one is all one thing. We're dynamic. So showing that through the text was really important to me, and I think he did that beautifully.
I am not a fan of Stephen Graham Jones's writing style. But I also didn't like being in Tali's POV because I felt like I could tell off the bat that Tali wasn't a reliable or like trustworthy narrator. But also I dislike being aware that I'm reading a book. And so the interjections and making me very aware that I'm reading a book kind of take me out of the reading experience. Like, oh, my typewriter doesn't have this, so this is going to be italicized, or this is going to be, well, I'm listening to the audiobook, so I don't see it either way.
True.
The way I absolutely live for that writing style is just so like, it's crazy how different we are, and I love it so much. Like, there's so many different ways to read a book and like to enjoy, or like, it's just so interesting how we can hate and love the same thing. I love the idea that the character is self-aware. I love that he's talking directly like to the reader, and in a way, especially with this story where it's so intimate, where he's saying like, you already know the story, you already know the thing that happened in La Misa, I'm just going to give you a little bit of background. Like, I love that idea that we as the reader are an actual character inside the book. And I eat it up when he was like, especially at the end where they were like, we published this book in this certain font because that's what would have been available in the 1990s or whatever at an auto parts dealer, because that's what the author requested. I just love that Stephen Graham Jones cares so much and wants things to feel so authentic.
Yeah.
And yeah, I love that.
Yeah, it's hard because I think I do like Stephen Graham Jones writing sometimes. Like, sometimes it works for me and then sometimes it doesn't. I think, in my opinion, I think he's so much better at novellas, because like everything that I've loved from him has been a novella. And I think he's really good at like the shorter stories, but I guess there's something about once he hits a certain page count, it just starts to feel a little bit like meandering, I guess, to me. And I get kind of bored with his stories when they're a little bit longer, I guess. But yeah, I feel like with this one, the writing just,
there were chapters.
Yeah, I know. And that too, like the no chapters thing made it more difficult, because I was like, oh my God, like when is this, gonna end? And like, yeah, because there would be like 60 page long like chapters basically, because there was no real chapter divides here. It was hard for me to get through this one.
I'm a tangent girl. I'm a stream of conscious girl.
Yeah.
This reminded me a lot of Jade,
Same.
but like just less obsessive.
Yeah.
So I love my time with it.
Yeah. I feel like
I'm sorry, go ahead.
I just felt like the trilogy just moved faster. And the streamer conscious, I don't know. Kayla's saying all my thoughts, so go ahead.
I read like 1,000-page fantasy books, so a long chapter doesn't necessarily turn me off, or where there's a lot of plot development. But I have to like the character. I probably got ran over by a bus tomorrow. If he swallowed a jar of peanut butter, it wouldn't bother me a bit. He's unlikable.
That last scene, that last part wasn't touching.
Okay. Did you have any memorable scenes or quotes though that stood out to you that you did enjoy?
I said it a little bit in the synopsis, but when he was like, yeah, slashers don't like just miraculously heal, and it's more internal, and like, you know, you can just feel it, but you don't see it. And he was like, yeah, and I'm in math class, and that's the normal response to people when they are in math class, is they like squinch or like feel upsetting. I thought that was funny as hell. I laughed out loud.
I can't say that I have a favorite quote.
All right.
But I love Amber. I love Amber. Amber is a ride or die to the
He really
end.
is.
When she was like, oh, I think you're killing people. Oh, that's crazy. So here's how we're going to do the next.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, she's so real, because I would do that for my bestie. If what happened at the beginning of the book happened to my best friend, if they wanted to get revenge on everyone involved, I am down. I don't want to go to prison, so we really got a plan. But I will support you, because that I will say what happened at the beginning was heinous. If it wasn't for Stacey, can we talk about Stacey too? Because I like Stacey.
Yeah,
Stacey. I hate that she met the end that she met, because I want her to survive.
she didn't deserve it. But Amber was, I found myself like being like, that's what I'm talking about, Amber. But also, Amber, do you need to see a therapist? Because why are you co-signing these very malicious behaviors? But I'm also like, I feel you, Aaron. If somebody did that to my best friend, I've already in real life have done terrible shit to people who's fuck with people I love. So I'm not above it. So I was like, well, Amber, you gotta do what you gotta do, I guess.
Yeah. I think my most like favorite scene was like the very ending of this book. Like I really did love the way that this wrapped up. Like I loved the scenes with like him and Amber at the end. And I do love how their friendship always stayed kind of like platonic and like just like really, I don't know, like I didn't really care about the characters at all throughout the book until the ending, when they had like that really nice scene with like their friendship. And like, I don't know, I think their friendship at the end was the thing that got me. And like I just loved the way it wrapped up with like the peanut butter thing. And like, I don't know, I thought it was entertaining, and I was like, finally something interesting. So
dang, the whole book wasn't interesting, but the last
yeah.
Natalie said the scene where he says he doesn't have to run because he'll catch them walking anyway. Love
that.
Yeah. So classic.
Yeah.
I also agree. Grain silos are very, very creepy locations if you've ever been near one. Okay, my favorite scene, like this is so steeped in grief. From the very beginning, he loses his dad. And the quote where he was like dying when the kids strapped him to the chair and fed him peanut butter and he was like on the brink of death. He said he felt like maybe an angel had come to my dad last year, told him I was going to die at 17 and given my dad a choice. Go on without me, tend my grave, tell stories about me to anyone he could corner, or drive into that tractor on purpose and be there waiting for me so I wouldn't be alone in the afterlife, so I wouldn't be scared. I was like, oh my God, what a like sad and beautiful thought that he would be there on purpose because he knew you would die. Like that's so sad to think about. And then I also highlighted the quote that it's 6 minutes of my life tops, but some memories you don't measure in minutes or miles, but how much of yourself is still in that moment. And I thought that was really really impactful for me.
Mhm.
My other favorite scene is just when we learned about the color blindness and how his vision would go black and white when he was like becoming a slasher. And I
Mhm.
loved those scenes, and I felt like they were really ominous. And I could so visualize it in a movie of watching that happen to him and what it would look like. I imagine this movie very much like tongue-in-cheek, like funny horror, but also a very meta, kind of like watching Scott Pilgrim, where it's like a graphic novel come to life. That's how I pictured watching this.
Mhm.
This is a book definitely written to be adapted, for
Mhm.
sure. For
Yeah.
sure.
Mhm.
The scene where he had that whole story with the guy at the store was actually like, oh yeah, that actually didn't happen. I loved that when he was just telling stories and then he was like, actually, I totally made up that scene just for the plot. And I think that's so fun.
Mhm. Yeah, and I guess we did kind of touch on this one, but like, what did you dislike or what could have been improved for you in the story? Getting to the point. I personally could have done without so many vomiting scenes. Personally, I'm like one of those people that gets very like I get very grossed out by like graphic descriptions of like vomiting and stuff. So I feel like there was an excessive amount of that. I don't know if anybody else noticed, but I was like, what the heck? Like, why are we describing this so much?
I feel like the first one was very visceral. The feel like when he was describing like the literal
Yeah,
peanuts coming out of.
I know.
I
I
thought
was
that
like,
was great. I was like, this is horror. Like this is doing it for me.
I
Oh my
was
god, I
here
feel
for
so
it.
disgusted.
Especially his first kill when he talked about the blood and how it looked and how he felt. And I was like,
Yeah.
yes, give it to us. Give it to
I
us.
did not connect with that. Like, it didn't feel gory or hoary at all to me. And I
Yeah.
think probably just tonally, the book doesn't feel very dark or
Mhm.
very gritty. That's how I interpret it. So I'm just like, oh, we're just like killing people on a Saturday afternoon.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. I think it was also for me like the repetition of the like if I had to hear this guy one more time be like, well, a slasher does this and like a slasher does that and like I'm just a slasher, you wouldn't get it. And like it was a little much.
I'm
I
over
definitely
here.
being
Just I don't
short.
have any words. Just parts that y'all didn't like. That's the parts I liked.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like I would have liked the ending to be a little bit longer. From finding out that Amber was technically the final girl to like the actual ending, there was only 20 pages. And I appreciate it because he was waiting so long to like reveal that. So if that was a surprise for you, then you probably didn't see it coming even more because like the ending was approaching so fast. But I think I would have liked to sit in that a little bit longer, like maybe them to have to battle a little bit more. But that's like the only critique that I could think of, and I had to force myself to think of something.
I saw Amber as the final girl very early on. I wasn't believing about what was her name? Jade?
Mel.
No,
Mel? Yeah,
Mel. Yeah.
I wasn't believing that. I felt like I called that pretty early on. But to me, calling something and then it happens doesn't make a book bad for me. I'm like, ooh, that's cool. I'm really that girl. I'm a, you know what I mean? That's how I be feeling. But what could have been done better? And this could be 100% biased. I just want y'all to know. I have not been in a reading headspace for a while. A lot of shit has happened personally in my life, so I haven't been mentally ready to read, which is why I'm rereading this book, because I feel like I was not in a good headspace. Now, when that snow drops down here in Minnesota, I'm gonna be seated in December. So I'm gonna go ahead and try it again in December because the only thing that I felt like just didn't work, and I don't know if anybody else felt that who was reading, I felt like I kept leaving the story and coming back. And I don't know if I was just confused or just not into the book, but I just felt like I kept wandering, like I kept going, the ADHD maybe, I just couldn't sit still. That's what it felt like. And I feel like that's the only thing I have. Really talking about what I could approve, huh? Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I know we kind of also touched on this as well, but were there any characters that stood out for you in terms of like, were you connecting with a character more than another, or do you wish we could have gotten another perspective? I know I saw in the chat, some people were saying they would have liked the perspective of the victims to make it extra kind of creepy and weird.
Don't I want to feel bad for them?
That's an interesting thought. I feel like the only characters that really you have the ability to connect with is Tolly and Amber, and barely even Amber.
Yeah.
You get them as more like surface level, or Amber more of a surface level character, but I guess Amber stood out to me because like I love how this was kind of a book similar to books where like you find out your best friend is like a vampire or a werewolf or an angel, and then you like go ahead and test all of their things. I just loved when they like went to the chainsaw place and like all of them worked when he touched them when they were all broken, and she was like, okay, let me take you out to like the school field to see how fast you can run and like pick up that knife, see if it works. Like I just thought that was a really fun dynamic because I've never seen anything like that without it being like a really paranormal entity. And so treating a slasher like a paranormal entity and like a zombie and like it's an illness was just perfect.
My favorite characters was totally his mom and Amber. I would have liked a little bit of a, not a lot, but a Salt Bay action of POV from mom. Because the whole time I just kept, okay, now I figured out why I was not in the headspace for this book. Damn, that got deep. Yeah. That got deep. So anyway, my grief is why I was not in the headspace for this book. The grief felt really thick. And if anybody in the chat has recently lost a parent, you know how that feels. So I couldn't really, I kept going everywhere. But the grief from the mom of like losing her husband and then losing her son and then having to like have your community look at you. And a lot of times if a kid breathes wrong, they blame the parent. Not saying there aren't shitty parents out there. Okay, they are. But I just kept thinking of like this poor mom, this poor mom, this poor mom, this poor mom. So I would have liked just some kind of, because the whole time when he was in his perspective and like talking about like, I bet my mom, maybe she's married, maybe she did this, maybe she's that, like, you know, just talking about what he thinks his mom is doing. Even Amber, when he would talk about the beautiful life that Amber should have and how she's better than him, I was like tearing up, like, damn, you really love your friend. So yeah.
Yeah, he really had to leave everybody behind for the betterment of them. It was like a huge sacrifice in here, and even like taking his own life at the end. Like it was
This might sound strange, but I almost wanted like interjections from the slasher, because in that first kill, Tolly kind of disassociates, and throughout the book, he disassociates from being the slasher, and he talks about this like slashing and the things that happen as if they're not happening to him, as if he is not the person doing it. And like the first time it happens, he's just like waking up and like a haze, like, what did I or did this happen? And so being locked into the perspective of actually the slasher and like the cold clinical whatever they're doing to like get this revenge, I think would have been really interesting and kind of intense.
Yeah,
to get.
I agree. That would have been cool. It'd been like a Dexter Dark Passenger thing or something. Yeah. Well, okay. And then as far as like the ending goes, I know we kind of briefly touched on this too, but also like, did you enjoy the ending? Did you see it going in any other directions, or what would you have changed about the ending, if anything? I know for me, I mentioned like the ending was my favorite part personally. So I really did like how this book wrapped up. I thought it was wrapped up really nicely.
I think it was beautiful. I think even though the behaviors he did was antisocial for real, and a lot of times we think of antisocial personality disorder, we think of lack of empathy. But I think that him making the decision to unalive himself was for the betterment of other people, specifically Amber. And I thought it was like selfless in a way. Yeah.
Sorry, I didn't mean to take over. I just wanted to highlight this one because I think it's interesting to think about Because like technically, yeah, in any horror movie, like the killer is never actually gone, right? Like I think there is, I don't know if everybody thinks this way, but like I do think you can interpret the ending. He definitely took his own life and ended it, and that with the peanut butter all over himself.
Yeah.
But I do think there's a world in which he comes back.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know though.
Well, and it was interesting the way they even talked about him at the end, how like, because what was it? Amber had his back to him, so she thought he would like live again. It was an interesting like commentary about slashers and how like the monster, like the slasher, is always coming back to life in like unrealistic ways. But I thought it was like really interesting and really well done at the end there.
Yeah, I'm not really a big fan of epilogues, but I would have loved the epilogue to start 10 days later. Amber went to her car and found it. You know what I mean? Like that.
Yeah. It'd be creepy.
I would have liked a chapter or two of that.
The ending made me miserable, derogatory. Same. I like the 17 years ago ending, the like showdown between Amber and Tolly, and even at the end, she just wanted to keep him from killing her. She didn't want him to die. I appreciate that because that's real. That's the shit. Like, you are not going to kill me, but I'm not going to sit here and let you die. Okay. But I didn't really like the present day ending because it just felt pointless and it felt self-indulgent, because if you ain't killed yourself for 17 years, why are you doing it today? Why did you, I want to wax poetic. I want to really recount my time as a teenage slasher, and I want to write this book. And of course, 17 years later, Amber comes to just a specific junkyard, car shop, whatever that I work at. And of course,
well, I mean, though, that's but that's like the whole point of the book, is that it's how ridiculous, like how you go to the store and the exact person that you need is there, and like everything is so convenient. Just like when the killer gets completely beat up in the movie, he can still go to school the next day because we're living by slasher rules, not real rules. I think like him taking his own life at the end makes sense because like he, I guess, finally saw that Amber is living a beautiful life, and so he finally felt closure in a way. I think that's what I imagine. I also I personally really liked the ending because we did get the confirmation that the slasher thing was like an infection. Like it really was a real thing, because there are moments that we get to question that if he actually does want to kill these people or if it's the slasher taking over his mind. But the moment that he's like actually dead, and it says he is dead, but Amber turns her back to him and he comes back to life, I think that is evidence that it is a true illness. And I liked getting that closure for myself as a reader.
Yeah. So would you want a sequel then? Question mark.
I'm not a sequel girl.
I mean, he set it up though. I feel like he was dropping so many hints, like, well, sequel's gonna sequel, and like I don't know if he was just talking about because this had happened 17 years ago, so this was the sequel, or if he was hinting that like this is gonna be his next series project and like there will be a sequel.
I can do a sequel if we have more POVs.
Or if it's a completely different like person, because if it is an illness, like he could infect other people. It could be a sequel that's not with this cast.
Yeah. I could do that. Yeah.
And nobody wants that.
The concept of the slasher though is like one of the most unique things ever. Like that you could be infected with this killing.
Yeah,
so
I do think
that maybe he should take it on to be something else. If not another book, definitely like a movie. I want to see it.
Yeah, I do think he should write more slashers though. I'm still a fan of his slasher work.
And I think we know the answer for all of us for this one, but will you read from this author again? You can let us know in the chat too.
Aaron's done.
Like we're very close to a rip to the trees situation. So I'm just like, I gotta step away. You know, I gotta call it quits.
Aaron, would you be interested in reading Earth Divers since they're comics and they're shorter?
I don't want to read a word from this man. Not even a tweet.
I'll be ruthless on the internet.
What's interesting is I've seen him speak before, and I like the way that he speaks works for me, but the way that he writes does not.
I feel like reading so much of his work, it's like you could never pick up one of his books and not know that it was written by him. Like it's so evident from the very first page, because he writes exactly the way he speaks. If you've ever read this man's like blurbs on other people's books, he is such a weird person. The way that he like says that. He doesn't just say like, I liked the book, I recommend it. He like writes a whole tale of its own in the blurb. Like he is just such a unique character
Mhm.
that it's very evident when like
It's
this is him.
very
He wrote
cultural.
like this is his mind.
Yeah.
Yeah. But him writing a whole blurb is very cultural. So I just love it. I'd be here for it. Honestly. I'm just really sad that so this book I've decided is a 3.75 4-star out of 5 stars for me.
Oh, nice.
But I need to reread it. I won't even tell you how many times I've reread The Night of the Mannequins. That shit was creepy as hell. I had to read that a couple times.
Yeah.
I feel like the one that I would recommend the most.
Yeah.
For people who like this one, to move on to this one.
Yeah, I think I would read from him again, but I think it just depends. I kind of agree with what Sarah said in the chat. Like, I'll only read like non-slasher stuff from him because the only ones that have really not worked for me is this one and My Heart is a Chainsaw, which are both his kind of slasher stuff. And then also like I do like his novellas, so like I would be open to like reading more of his short form fiction in the future. I just don't know if his full-length novels are really going to be my thing moving forward, but I would read from him again, yeah.
I haven't read it yet, but I know Kayla has. Kayla, how would you compare this to that Paul Tremblay vampire book? Because based on the concept, they seem similar. Yes.
Yeah.
This one I pulled out absolutely because I wouldn't necessarily recommend the Pallbearers Club for fans of this, but I would the other way around. Like if you liked the Pallbearers Club, this is my next thing that I'm going to recommend to everybody because it's such a friendship story, and there's like barely any horror in here, but I would definitely compare them as far as like commitment to friendship. And then my other recommendation that I wanted to pull is My Best Friend's Exorcism because it's another kind of horror book about friendship. There is more horror. There is a lot happening that's different in here. But I would say if you liked this one, move on to this one. Those are
Both of those are on my TBR and now I'm nervous.
What'd you say?
Both of the books she recommended in tandem are on my TBR, and now I'm nervous.
Oh my God, Erin, do not read this. Like, don't.
Yeah,
do
don't.
No, do not do that.
No. In the Raven Boys because of you.
You're going to hate it, and then you're going to roast it, and then I'm going to be sad.
I'm very
Everything
sorry.
bad.
This is
Everything
gonna
bad
happen
is going to happen if you read that.
Have you read other Paul Tremblay or no?
Have I read
I've
any?
never read it.
I've never.
I don't have no interest in it though. There's just some authors that BookTube loves and they talk about them in a way that I feel like it's a hell no for me. Not even like a no.
Oh no.
Well, you should know that these two are like best friends, like in real life.
I know they are.
In that horror movie a couple weeks ago. So I guess
they have a lot of similarities, and I actually think that they inspire each other's writing in a lot of ways.
Yeah, I can't do Paul Tremblay. No, I can't do Tremblay. And I also can't do the Southern guy. I hate
that
this
is one of my favorite books of all time.
It's so good, Bree.
I hate this writing. Give me the peanut allergy so I can end it all. You hear me?
I
can't. The misogyny of it all.
I need to do a video figuring out my horror taste because I do not know what I like, but what I like a lot. I love.
No, I can't deal with that misogyny. That is way.
But it was so real, and being from the South, it really hit.
I'm from the South too, babes.
It was oh my God!
It did not hit. In fact, it was unbearable.
See, it's just so crazy.
That's wild.
I've loved Grady Hendrix, and I've just like the Pumpkin Haunted House book. He needs to apologize to every tree that had to die to make those books because that was a waste of paper.
Yeah.
He's a real like all over the place kind of author.
Can you say that one more time? I need to write that quote down. One more time. I need to apologize. Now that's some sick shit. Like that joke had levels. It was like environmentally friendly. Like that was good. That was good.
Oh, I've never hated a book so much.
That's so funny. Yeah, I usually like Grady Hendrix, but I agree that one was a bit of a miss for me as well. But yeah, in the chat, if you had any other recommendations for books that are similar, or not even books, but just like any movies or TV shows that you would also recommend that are similar, or you think if somebody read this and either enjoyed it or didn't enjoy it and is looking for something similar, what you would recommend, if anything. I think for me, the only thing I could think to compare it to was My Heart is a Chainsaw, just because of the like similarity with like the friendships and the slasher elements. Like, I don't know, it reminded me quite a bit of that one.
Yeah.
But I couldn't think of anything else that I would recommend or that I would compare this to.
I haven't read any slashers other than from Stephen Graham Jones, so I don't really know, honestly. I have some comics in mind, but not really. No.
I didn't think about Cabin in the Woods. That's a good one, just because it's like a very meta, another meta one. I was thinking The Final Girls as a movie. I watched that with my channel members last year, and it's a very campy slasher. That one was fun. Happy Death Day is one that came to mind.
Oh yeah.
Oh, I have one by Kaylin Barron. You were supposed to die. You weren't supposed to die tonight.
Oh yeah, that's a good one.
5 stars, hand down, 10 stars if it could be.
That's YA, right?
Yeah. I'm not really into the YA, and sometimes Kaylin Barron pace pisses me off. But somehow I felt like she was in the lab. In the lab, and she was making it happen. So for sure, you're not supposed to. I'm not going to give y'all the wrong title. Let me look it up.
I also think The Wolfman, the movie from like the 40s. Stephen Graham Jones actually mentioned that in like an interview that I saw a while ago about how he rewatched that to like follow the pacing of it for this book. So I would recommend you watch that if you love this one and you want to see kind of its partial inspiration.
Interesting.
And I just pre-ordered The Buffalo Hunter. Thank you. And somebody in the chat, Libro, you're a real one. I keep forgetting that I have a Libro account. Do I have 13 credits?
Nice.
My author was getting like that. I had to pause it for 3 months, and I'm like, I'm not getting through these credits.
It's bad. When I forgot about Audible, I forgot about Libro, and I forgot about Book of the Month. I got 15 credits with Book of the Month. And I said, you just been giving these people money for 15 months.
Oh no.
Oh.
Buffy's interesting.
Yeah, but I don't know what to buy books, so that's Yeah, you're not supposed to die tonight. Thank you, Subhana. I like that name.
All right. Did you have any final things to wrap up the live show? I don't think I
think I shared all of my thoughts. I think I had more gushing to do, but I'm trying to keep it.
No, gush, please.
Please gush.
Please gush. This is your moment.
No, I'm fine.
Yeah,
I haven't had a 5-star. I haven't had a 5-star for my own book club in like a year since Monstrilio. Wow. So this just felt like very refreshing. I'm just very happy to be here. Happy to.
I have a question for the three of y'all, and this may help some people in the chat. As people who are very familiar with Stephen Graham Jones, where would you recommend people start out with his works?
I would have to know, how gory do you want? Like, what's your scary meter first? Because I gave a friend The Only Good Indians, and she's been reading it for 3 years.
Oh, no.
I feel like this is a good place to start.
Yeah.
Because it gets like more intense from here and less intense from here. But this is such a good idea of his writing style that if you hate this, then just like don't pick up anything else. Yeah. Because the people who absolutely hate this aren't going to like anything else probably. But most people tend to give this like a 3, 4, or 5, and then they move on, through his other stuff. Or just start with a novella, because like it's an easy way to get a vibe for his stuff. I started, the first one I ever read was Mapping the Interior. And that was obviously a good place to start because I liked it enough to want to read more.
Yeah. No, I think I'd recommend starting with Night of the Mannequins just because I think it's his best personally from me. And so I think that would be a good one to start with, just because if you're going to read any of them, might as well read one of the better ones.
The Only Good Indian is the one that's on my TBR that has moved to the unhauled pile.
That's fair.
Yeah.
I feel like that would be one that you would like, because it's the atmosphere is super creepy, and it's the fastest paced book he's written that I've read.
Yeah, but we don't need more roasting from Erin. Needs to choose joy, and
I'm trying so hard to find horror books that I like because my hits they hit so hard.
Do you think it's because you are like a fantasy reader for the most part?
My favorite horror books, House of Leaves, is my #1 favorite horror book. House of Leaves, and that was just such an intense reading experience. House of Leaves, The Southern Book Club's Guide to Slaying Vampires, What Moves the Dead, A House at the Bottom of the Lake, Catherine House. Those are like books that
you like Catherine House?
I know.
I need to get out of this.
You can never guess Erin's opinions. There's no predicting what Erin's gonna say ever.
Oh my god! What gave
Catherine House was so good.
It was horrible. That should have aged.
It was so interesting and like the descent into madness. Oh, delicious!
I feel like nothing happened. I was sitting there waiting.
I liked Catherine House too. I like the atmosphere in that one.
Period could have came faster than the plot of that book.
I think you're gonna have to come back for the Literally Dead Book Club is gonna do in February the new Grady Hendrix, the Home for Wayward Girls or whatever. So you're just gonna have to come back for that because maybe Grady Hendrix is your place to be most of the time.
Not mine. And I'm okay with that. You know what I mean? You got to know what you like. I'm up here trying to figure out what kind of fantasy I like.
I do not know what the I like. I really want to figure it out though.
Yeah. So the book trip next month, we're going to be reading We Used to Live Here by Marcus Cloutier. I don't know how. I'm not sure what his last name is.
But I gave it 5 stars.
I know. I'm so excited. Kayla gave 5 stars. Now I'm really hyped to read it. I've been looking forward to this
horror book, right?
Yeah. And it follows like a queer couple, haunted house vibe. It sounds interesting, and it was compared to Parasite, which is like one of my favorite movies of all time. So I'm here and I'm excited.
What's the name of the book one more time? Sorry.
The name of the what?
The book for your book club?
It's called We Used to Live Here.
Oh, because that sounds really good. I think I'll read that.
Yeah, it does. It sounds like it'll be a good time, and it's getting mostly across the board pretty good reviews from what I've seen from trustworthy friends. So
we'll see. I hope you like it.
I hope so too. I think I have good feelings about it. Yeah, and then what is the Literally Dead Book Club up to these next few months?
Thanks for asking. It's The God of the Woods by Liz something.
More?
Yeah.
That one. It's like gonna be like a mystery. So we're going from a slasher to a mystery next. I think it's gonna be fun.
I haven't read Liz Moore. What's her thoughts? Great.
I haven't either.
Well, Book of the Month has that book if you want to get it.
Oh my god! I feel like sharing response because I was looking on it yesterday and I got way overwhelmed. I said I need to buy a book, but which one?
Book of the Month has the God of the Woods.
Can you gift credits?
I'm not sure.
I know you can buy them from other people. I don't know if you can give them the ones that you have them.
I don't know.
Yeah, because I would like to offload.
All right. Well, we'll see you guys next time for those 2 live shows. Thank you very much for joining us for this discussion, and we will see you next time.
Bye.
Bye.